Welcome back. We have Krishna Memani, the Chief Investment Officer at Lafayette College, joining us to talk to us about what's happening in the global arena. Krishna, hi, good morning, good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time and speaking with us. Let's talk about the global headlines, right? Of course, this entire disruption with the war coming in, how do you think it's likely to pan out going forward? Because it doesn't feel like that the world can afford another war after what we have seen at Russia-Ukraine.
Situation right now is extraordinarily uncertain, so it's kind of difficult to say precisely how things will play out. Having said that, I think the path for the impact on the global economy and the markets is really oil prices, and oil prices, if they spike because of escalation, whether Saudi Arabia or Iran gets involved in this in some way, that remains very, very uncertain. Having said that, we have dealt with these situations in the past. And I think it is in the best interest of everyone not to get it to a situation where it becomes uncontrollable. So I remain hopeful, but the amount of uncertainty is extraordinary at the moment.
Yeah, we are living in very uncertain times, but in such situations, because you've seen many such cycles in the past, unfortunately, Krishna, what's the best investment strategy for an investor?
Well, so I think that's a really good question. The best investment strategy it remains the same as it was before the situation. And the way to kind of deal with the current situation is basically dialing up or dialing down the amount of risk that you take rather than change your basic investment strategy. I think if you look around globally, things are slowing down in other developed markets, the only and emerging markets for that matter. The only two areas where things are somewhat decent from a growth perspective is really the U.S. and to some extent India. China, Europe, other emerging markets continue to suffer. So the basic investment strategy is still the focus on markets where things are looking good from a growth perspective. And I think U.S. equities, until this episode, were in a pretty good situation. Rates were a concern, but I don't think the rates have a whole lot to go on the upside. The current situation will have an impact, but my basic idea is that things will remain somewhat controlled, because it's in everyone's best interest not to get it escalate to a level that it becomes a big challenge for everyone.
Krishna, it's quite funny. You're talking about how, people are looking for growth on one hand, and India stands tall on that regard. But if you look at the FII money, it's actually seen quite a bit of an outflow this year. What explains that, and where do you see India coming in the pecking order?
So, selling of emerging markets has been going on for quite some time. And I think the driver of that is, as you already indicated, is U.S. rates. U.S. rates, the dollar kind of makes investing outside of the home country quite challenging. Having said that, I think, as I indicated before, we are probably at the peak of U.S. rates and therefore probably peak of the U.S. dollar. So I think the outlook for investing in India, I think, has improved as a result. India in and of itself is growing quite rapidly. It's a domestic market, not as highly impacted by what happens in the rest of the world, oil being the exception. If oil prices spike up a lot, that clearly would be a challenge for the Indian markets and the Indian economy. I don't expect that, and I think the longer-term trend in investing in India is quite positive. A lot of people who, like me, who never thought of making a separate allocation into India in a big way, both in private markets and public markets, are contemplating thinking about those allocations. I think that foretells a good trend for India from an investment and foreign flow standpoint.
That's very interesting. So people are now contemplating making a separate allocation for India. That's very heartening to know. But within India itself, which sectors are you most bullish on or betting big on?
Well, so from a investment perspective, especially long-term investing perspective, if you are investing in places like India, you're investing for growth. And I think that's what we are focused on, rather than investing in large cap banks, which great companies, but I don't think they have the growth potential that one would think of. So places like the healthcare sector, consumer-oriented companies where there are things changing, digitization, places where the growth outlook is meaningfully higher. And I don't think that's really in the large cap sector. It remains in the mid and small cap sectors. That's where we are focused on.
Okay, thanks, Krishna, for joining us today. But with that, we're completely out of time on this edition of the show. Thank you so much for being with us.